Resident Evil 6 took a different approach than most games in that the story is told from 4 different perspectives that intersect at various points. Figuring out exactly what happens can get messy. Is it worth the trouble? Oh, well, hell, I don't know. But I did it! If you haven't figured it out yet, this is going to be one massive spoiler of a video, so... yeah, duh. We first see Chris on December 24th, 2012. He's leading a squad of BSAA soldiers against the threat of a new enemy known as the Javo, which is the result of a new virus that responds to physical trauma with absurd and vaguely animal-like mutations. He comforts the rookie named Finn, but he's got one of those hastily rendered plastic faces, so we already know he's a goner.
Is he always this awesome?
Seriously? Meanwhile, the mercenaries working for the other side are injecting themselves with something that they've been told will make them more effective in combat. This was actually the new C virus, of course, and was provided by Ada Wong. Sherry Birkin, a survivor from Resident Evil 2, shows up just in time to see them change. Jake Muller is hanging out in the other room and feeling ripped off by the substance's lack of effect when he's attacked by one of his peers. He does his best Dante impression before running into Sherry and escaping. Sherry, as it turns out, is all grown up now and is working for the government. She actually came here specifically to find Jake because his blood carries the antibodies that are the key to stopping the C virus. Jake agrees to play along for the price of $50 million. Sherry and Jake then encounter Ustanok for the first time, a hulking creature that will be tracking Jake for the rest of the game. You can think of him as this game's nemesis. Once they're able to get away, they encounter Chris and his second-in-command, Piers, who recognizes Jake as an enemy mercenary. Sherry declares Jake to be under the protection of the United States government, and Chris helps them get a lift out of the war zone. Chris seems to recognize Jake, but he doesn't seem to be able to place his face. Chris continues his mission and encounters Ada Wong, who feigns innocence and tells them that the guerrillas are being funded by an organization called Neo Umbrella. Disposable Finn is then put in charge of keeping Ada safe, so you can pretty much predict what happens next.
I don't know what happened. She was here a second ago.
Here's something to remember me by.
No, goddammit!
Finn gets a really dramatic death that we don't care about because we only knew him for about 5 minutes, and Chris is devastated by the loss of his squad. Meanwhile, Ustanok attacks Jake and Sherry while they're in the air, causing them to crash. Jake wakes up in the snow to find Sherry impaled by a large piece of hull. She asks Jake to pull the metal out, and it turns out that Sherry's body can regenerate from some pretty awful wounds. Sherry and Jake are both incapacitated by Ustanok and taken into custody by Ada Wong, who proceeds to tell Jake that he is Wesker's son. The game then jumps forward 6 months, but in the meantime occur the events of 3 flashbacks at unspecified dates. Ada gets contacted by Simmons, who hints at life-changing information. Leon learns that the president plans to reveal everything that happened in Raccoon City to the public, and Helena is being held prisoner as her sister is taken away by Simmons. On June 27, 2013, we see Ada Wong sneaking aboard a submarine based on bait laid by Simmons. It's revealed that Simmons has Ada's print on file, which piques her interest. Ada finds a briefing for a mission she had supposedly done 6 months ago but has no memory of, and Simmons reveals his plans for 2 bioterrorist attacks, one in the United States followed by one in China. He also claims that she will be responsible. Ada assumes that he plans to use her as a scapegoat. 2 days later, on June 29, 2013, Leon is face to face with the zombified president. He hesitates for so long that he almost gets bitten, even though he's been through at least 2 games worth of this stuff and knows what zombies are. President Evil! After over a decade, that joke finally makes sense. Helena goes on about how this is all her fault, and then lies to Hunnigan, claiming that Leon has a lead at Tall Oaks Cathedral. Leon plays along for some reason, and they proceed to escape the campus. Along the way, they encounter another disposable plastic-faced man who mentions a fog that may have been the cause of all of this. Once they reach the cathedral, they are attacked by and defeat a monster that is infecting people with an airborne agent that turns them into zombies. Leon and Helena follow a secret passage underground to a Neo Umbrella lab, where they find a videotape of Ada Wong coming out of some sort of cocoon. This makes no sense to them, and they proceed onwards until they encounter Deborah, Helena's sister. Deborah is infected by the C virus and gets shot through the head by Ada Wong, but this isn't enough. A battle follows that ultimately results in Helena having to let her sister go.
Avenge your death. Please. Forgive me.
Helena reveals that she's the one who actually helped Simmons get to the president, and Ada hints that they're dealing with the people who really run this country. Ada leaves Leon and Helena behind, and then both parties get a call from Simmons at the same time. It's unclear whether Ada notices this impossibility. She proceeds to somehow rewatch the videotape without rewinding, and is able to figure out that she's not actually being called by Simmons. You see, there are actually two Ada Wongs in this game, the real one and an imposter that appears to have been created by the C virus. The fake Ada Wong is the one who gave the mercenaries the C virus and attacked Chris. She has also been posing as Simmons in order to communicate with the real Ada Wong. The real Ada Wong didn't enter the story until the scene that took place on the submarine. She's also the one who was just helping Leon and is standing in the Neo Umbrella lab. An easy way to distinguish the two is by recognizing that the real Ada Wong wears red and the imposter wears purple. Also, the imposter wants to destroy the world. Minor details. Let's go back to that call that Leon is getting from the real Simmons. It's pretty clear that Simmons is the bad guy at this point, and he intends to frame Leon and Helena for murdering the president. Leon and Helena escape in order to see that Simmons is blowing up the infected area to cover his tracks. Hunnigan tells them that Simmons is heading to China, and Leon asks her to fake their deaths. On this fine evening, we also find Chris getting drunk in a bar. Piers has apparently been tracking him for the last 6 months and intervenes in a comically elaborate ruse. Really? Everyone in the entire bar is there to find Chris? It's clear that Chris doesn't remember anything about what happened 6 months ago, so Piers gives him a painful reminder. The next day is June 30th, 2013. After 6 months of captivity, Jake and Sherry escape from a Neo Umbrella facility in China along with a bunch of data their captors have been collecting on Jake. Jake isn't taking the news well that his deadbeat dad was a lunatic.
You know, I thought dear old dad was just a deadbeat who skipped out on us. No, he was actually a freaking nut job who almost destroyed the world.
Chris and Piers have also arrived in China on a mission to wipe out the Javo in the area. Images of combat remind Chris about what happened to Finn, and he sets his vengeful eye on finding Ada Wong. Jake and Sherry help Chris and Piers take down an attacking helicopter, the lamest boss in the game, but split up again immediately after. Jake is becoming aware that Chris seems to recognize him and wonder if Chris knows that Wesker was his father. Piers wants to follow Jake and Sherry, reasoning that they must be important if Neo Umbrella is after them. But Chris doesn't care about anything other than tracking down Ada. Around this time, Leon and Helena's plane has almost arrived in China when it is attacked by another gas monster.
I don't suppose that thing can fly a plane, do you?
The gas monster cannot, in fact, fly a plane, so they crash in a distractingly pre-rendered looking cutscene. Jake and Sherry witness the crash and meet Leon and Helena. Sherry tells Leon that she's on her way to see Simmons, who is also the reason Leon is here. The four are attacked by Ustanok, and they are separated in the resulting destruction. Meanwhile, Chris's squad is being attacked by a giant invisible snake. He's losing men one by one and starting to lose his mind. Chris becomes all the more unreasonable once imposter Ada personally infects the last disposable member of their squad.
You hadn't been blinded by vengeance, we could have prevented some of those deaths. Shut up! I feel sorry for all the men that died believing in you.
I'm going after Ada.
Chris and Piers enter a Neo Umbrella lab of some kind at the same time as Leon and Helena. Chris and Piers catch up with imposter Ada, but Leon stops Chris from shooting her. She escapes through the use of a flashbang, and then the two teams split up. Leon and Helena are continuing after Simmons while Chris and Piers are going after Ada. Chris's vengeful rampage just sort of turns off like a light switch. Piers couldn't say anything to change Chris's mind, but Leon's vague comments about doing the right thing are apparently what does the trick.
You hadn't been blinded by vengeance, we could have prevented some of those deaths.
I know you'll do the right thing.
Special note: Leon knows absolutely nothing about the situation, Chris's motives, or the fact that there is a fake Ada Wong. The real Ada Wong has been in China for a little while at this point too. Much of this time was spent fighting a chainsaw monster that is now terrorizing Jake and Sherry. Ada offers covering fire and eventually swoops down to save Sherry as the monster is torn up by the helicopter blade. Sherry, Jake, Leon, and Helena all confront Simmons, and he doesn't deny the charges of terrorism. Leon reveals that the president is dead before Simmons has his men open fire. Sherry gives Leon the Neo Umbrella data on Jake. She doesn't explain what it is, but she says it will stop the C virus. Jake and Sherry run away but are immediately captured by Javo. Once Sherry and Jake are gone, a Javo sneaks up behind Simmons and infects him with the C virus. Simmons jumps on a passing train and is followed by Leon and Helena. Imposter Ada calls Simmons to taunt him, revealing herself as the source of the Javo sneak attack.
You're just becoming the monster you always were.
You and everyone else on the planet.
Chris and Piers track down and corner imposter Ada on a ship, at which point she proceeds to say just about everything that you shouldn't say when someone's pointing a gun at you.
I should be thanking your men for being such good test subjects.
A helicopter comes by and imposter Ada is shot by one of Simmons' men. The real Ada is also on the ship and figures out the identity of the imposter Ada just in time to see her splattered all over the deck. Back on the train, Simmons has mutated into some sort of monster that is taken down by Leon and Helena. The train derails as a result, so they make a jump for the ocean. On the ship, Ada investigates the body of the imposter, who she calls Carla. Turns out that not only is Carla alive, but she is confident that her plan will succeed. She expands into some sort of putty monster that chases Ada through the ship until she's able to freeze Carla and escape in a helicopter. Chris fails to stop the launch of a missile from the ship, which explodes in the middle of the city. The C virus quickly spreads through the city as a gas, causing all the mayhem you would expect from zombies in a major population center. Leon continues into the city after telling Chris to rescue Jake and Sherry from the underwater oil field. Leon reveals to Chris that Jake is Wesker's son, and that he is the key to stopping the C virus. Midnight passes, and it is now July 1st, 2013. Chris and Piers ride a long elevator down to the oil field while the game's writers masturbate over how clever they are.
A man who spent his entire life trying to destroy the world, and now his son is the only one who could save it.
As they infiltrate the facility, they are able to release Jake and Sherry from their bonds remotely. Ada Wong gets a view of the destruction as she flies over the city, and eventually finds Leon and Helena. At this point, Helena appears to be on death's door if you're playing the intro level of the game, but when you reach this point in the normal campaign, she appears to be completely healthy. Chris and Piers finally meet up with Jake and Sherry, and then Chris chooses the worst possible moment to reveal to Jake that he killed his father.
Jake, please stop.
Put a bullet in your head!
Put your gun down.
Drop your
Don't
weapon!
do this!
There are more important things at stake than you and me.
The four get separated as a giant cocoon hatches, and Chris and Piers are left to deal with the monster on their own as the facility begins to flood. Meanwhile, Leon, Helena, and Ada encounter Simmons, who apparently survived the last encounter. Simmons continues to transform into all sorts of strange creatures, resulting in a stupidly long string of boss fights. After a big rooftop showdown, Ada parts ways with Leon and Helena. Back at the underwater facility, Jake and Sherry are once again attacked by Ustanok in a room filled with molten lava. Ada Wong arrives in a room where yet another cocoon is hatching, and then proceeds to destroy everything in this room. At this point, Ada leaves the game's story for good. In the city, as Leon and Helena are approaching the helipad to escape, Simmons shows up yet again. This is just getting ridiculous. After what is probably the worst boss fight in the game, Simmons meets his ultimate fate in a way that is both comically improbable and visually striking. Leon and Helena arrive at the helicopter to find Ada left them proof of everything Simmons had done. Leon and Helena finally escape from China. Back in the underwater facility, Jake takes out Ustanok with a bare-knuckled punch, completely nullifying any sense of danger ever posed by the persistent boss character. He shows up again later, because who doesn't in this game, but Sherry and Jake shoot him in the heart and finally escape. Elsewhere in the facility, Chris and Piers' fight with the cocoon monster is going badly. Piers suffers not one but two horrible wounds to his right arm and injects himself with the C virus. They are able to defeat the monster, but Piers is in a bad shape. Chris refuses to leave him behind, so Piers shoves him into an escape pod and seals his own fate. We are then shown 4 epilogues that take place at unspecified dates. Helena places flowers on her sister's grave before resigning herself to be arrested for her part in the plot against the president. Instead, she has been deemed innocent and is reinstated as an agent. Chris is seen eating at the same bar Piers found him in a few days before the events that took place in China. A new recruit speaks with him, and then we're treated to the same ending that you've seen in every military-based film ever. Sherry is seen on a plane without Jake, and reveals that the blood sample and data have been passed on to the UN researchers. Jake's relationship with Wesker is classified as top secret, and a text message reveals that he has lowered his asking price from $50 million to a mere $50. Jake is then shown defending a child against Javo for an apple. So that's it for the Resident Evil 6 storyline. Click the annotation if you want to hear my take on everything.